Welcome to Silverstone and welcome to 60 Plus Racing Adventures, the rather unique sim racing league for well-seasoned drivers 60 years of age or older. It is rather unique in that way in the sim racing landscape, but it's a great community, it's great respectful racing, and we love the characters and the drivers in this one. Of course, it's the Pro Mazda 18, PM18 Indy Pro, for the last couple of seasons. It's provided really great racing. 2 races are ahead of us in this round of the championship, so thanks for joining us on RaceSpotTV. Let's have a look then at that calendar. David Haynes and Peter Mackay with you here, and Hugo Lewis on the production. So you find us in season 24 at the halfway point. We brought you the Indy Road Course race at round 1. Since then, they've gone to Watkins Glen, the Phoenix Speedway, Fuji International, great new track on iRacing, Road Atlanta. Here we are, Silverstone Historic, no Abbey Chicane, so it will be a high-speed slipstreaming blast around this place. You see the rest of the schedule, some new circuits in there as well with Rudskogen. And it'll all come to a head November 30th at Mosport Park in Canada, and you'll find that race live here on RaceSpot as well. Peter, let's then look to the history of 60 Plus Racing Adventures, now in its 24th season.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it? Certainly, with it's great to have a community of people very much in their in the certainly more experienced part, and yeah, very good indeed. Stefan Rosgen, by far and away the benchmark in the class as well. But Russ Addy, the last 2 seasons, he's been the guy to look forward to. Can he match Stephen Rosgen's 8 titles? Well, he's got a wee bit to go, but he's on the right path.
Yeah, certainly, you'd say the historic GOAT of this championship. Stefan Rosgen hasn't won a title in quite a while. Russ Addy starting to rack them up. But Ragnar Wisloff has 2, and he leads the championship at this point, mighty close between those 2. Ragnar Wisloff of Norway and Russ Addy of the USA. But Barry Hills currently in 3rd in those championships, and Gahardis Jorison, John Morgan, Randy Shoemake, Mike McCormick, Donald Fitterer, those guys are oh so close in that section of the championship there, and it's Bruce Poole and Ulf Olsen. And these drivers also put a lot of weight on the team's championship as well, so you might see some names sort of to the bottom of the top 10 there, but they're really trying to maximise their point scoring to go with their teammates to try to pick up that points championship and team's championship if they can. So on this Silverstone historic layout, it is super quick. Not only are we skipping that more recent infield section, they're straight out skipping the Abbey Chicane as well. It's a lot of time at full throttle in a junior Formula single-seater that's going to slipstream very strongly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all about momentum in a car like this. It's got pretty good aero performance, but not a lot of power. So, yeah, it really makes its speed up in terms of the corner speed as well, rather than straight grunt down the straight. The Indy Pro 2000 is the kind of middle step on the Mazda road to Indy. You start off in USF 2000, then Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights, and hopefully onto the NTT IndyCar series. But I think on this old school Silverstone layout, a circuit that really does have some fast corners, I think it's going to be big commitment, and I think a bit of patience is going to be required as well, I think, David, as well, because yeah, it's going to be very unusual to get a car breaking away with the way the slipstream is.
Yeah, the consistency across the races is going to be pretty interesting. A little mistake that drops you away from the pack could become a big mistake in that way. Qualifying is just wrapping up for race 1 of 2, and you can see John Morgan leads the way there. Really close numbers in a solo qualifying session as well, because it is fractions of a tenth of a second to Ragnar Wisloff, Donald Fitterer, Mike McCormick, Donald Poole and Paul Stump, who are going to make up the first 3 rows of the grid. It will be a rolling start as well for our drivers in this one. Decent little field of 26 will give us 13 rows of these buzzy open wheelers, and they're about to get ready for that first race. So we will take a look at the full grid, how they will go for race 1. John Morgan, actually a defending Super 70s champion as well, so many years of racing passion underneath his belt, and he's still got it with the outright pole position from points leader Ragnar Wisloff and Donald Fitterer, Mike McCormick, Donald Poole and Paul Stump, like we mentioned, make up the first 3 rows. Behind them, Ulf Olsen, Greg Garris, Gerhardus Jorrison, Barry Hills we saw, he's doing very well in the points so far this season. He's going to start out at 10th, and then the defending champ, Russ Addy, there in 11th. We did see a tiny bit of Randy Shoemake, who's going to start out at 12th. He was definitely maximising his qualifying and his practice time in that session they just had. Marcellus Broining and Mike Grandy, and Douglas Beasley, Eugene Clark, Peter Hallstrom and Richard Coulomb 17th to 18th there. A lot of names with a lot of racing to their name in this championship. Very familiar names to the league and those who've tuned in to our coverage before. Same can be said for JC Hay and David Bradley, Mike Roach, Vince Ball, Earl Setzer, France Brink. And the final 2 cars, no qualifying time for Richard Varley or Gene Moore, but we've definitely seen plenty of racing from them in the past. Field sets off on what's going to be a slightly lengthy formation lap, Peter, but it gives us a good look at this old version of Silverstone, the old pits, old starting line. It is a little bit of a time warp, but still an amazing track, a lot of history here.
Yeah, it is. This is a layout that was kind of retired in 2009. The new Silverstone layout came in a year after that as well. So it's been a while since we've looked at it in this configuration, but fantastic. Really old school in terms of the flow of it as well. You can imagine charging through here in a Tyrrell in the early 1970s. It's a really lovely flow to it. Of course, a lot of sections that have carried over into the new layout. For example, this part we're going through here at Maggots and Beckett's, albeit slightly different, just slightly different profile to before, and then down the Hanger Straight. But yeah, Slipstream is going to be the story of the day in both of these races, getting that timing just right and the run to line. I think we could see some dramatic finishes in these 2 races.
Yeah, so then the Hanger Straight here, fortunately for the both of us, Peter, that old scan of Silverstone, no Porsche Experience Centre on the left here just yet. The kids are going to have to wait for that one to come around in 10 years' time from this time travelling trip. But yeah, really quick to the opening half of the lap, I'd say, because it's a quick pit straight, very fast through Copse Corner, and this is the kind of car that can really carry speed through there as well. They are light, they do have wings and slicks on them, and then quick through Maggots Beckett's, fast change the direction, and then I think you'll see a lot of passing from the Hanger Straight down towards Stowe. It gets a little more technical at this far end of the circuit here, but it's off of Club Corner where they're really going to have that slipstreaming, because you see we open up the track a little bit on the way in, and then there's no Abbey chicane either, so we're almost sure the scan is from 2008, but it's kind of closer to what Formula 1 ran in the 90s.
Yeah, 2008, it has to be that when iRacing first came onto the market, because yeah, within 2 years of that, the new layout was in place with the wing complex, etc. So yeah, interesting to kind of travel back in time here as well. Albeit that model of Porsche, that was that's a 991 Porsche that came out a couple of years after, so maybe not quite period correct.
You know what, I had a look at my favourite reference, racingcircuits.info, and I think this layout, skipping Vale and skipping the Abbey chicane, pretty close to what F1 raced on between 1991 and 1993. Of course, and they added some extra bits later on, but left the old circuit, as it were. Great little guided tour, if you will, but it's about time to go racing. The pace car's about to pull in, and your pole sitter is ready. John Morgan about to lead the field to start us off for race 1 or 2 in 60 plus racing adventures. He has had a very good jump, but what about this second and third side by side? Donald Fitterer has the inside as they go into Copse. It's cold tyres all round, and you saw Wisloff, points leader, twice a champion, have just a little bit of a wiggle. Marcellus Broining likewise stamps on the brakes, and he's going to save that one. Great job.
He's obviously had his Red Bull this morning. He's got the reactions there to save that one and keep the car out of the barriers. But it's number 177 of John Morgan trying to make the breakaway. It's going to be very tough to break the field though, and you can just see it doesn't even need too much of a slipstream there either. The number 20 of Donald Fitterer making a run, and we're going to go 3 wide there as well, are we? Oh, not quite challenged for the lead. Watch not touch wheels. Oh, thought this was 60 plus. This looks like rabid teenagers here.
Well, that was super close between your race leaders there. Almost the wheels touching, could have been catastrophe. And I think clever stuff from Ragnar Wisloff to back out of the 3 wide on the way in towards Stowe corner there, and he's going to get another opportunity flat out through the kink instead of taking the Abbey chicane. Leads him to a lot of speed underneath the bridge here, and you can see this is pack racing at its finest with that slipstream on this fast layout. Finally, some corners, a little bit of flow through the final part of the lap here as well, and some overtaking opportunities to be had. The field still so close as they're about to complete lap 1 of 17. I think good work by John Morgan to still be leading this one, because how much pressure was he under at every single opportunity?
Yeah, and this is going to be funny if you want to lead out the last corner, or whether you actually want to be kind of getting a run out of the last corner on the leader. And that's going to, I wonder if we'll see some drivers kind of running a little bit of a dress rehearsal on that front. We're right on board with Barry Hills heading down towards Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. This is a section that Lewis Hamilton says Eau Rouge has nothing on this section. You're really leaning on all the aerodynamic grip that the car can give you. In fact, Porsche actually just launched the new 911 GT3 RS, which is one of the highest aerodynamic performance cars in history, and they've chose to launch it here, and corners like that are exactly why.
Stability that changes the direction, so important. Let's have a look at Donald Poole. Oh, he's just caught the grass on the exit of Copse corner, and that's actually a little sickening. I recoiled a little bit, but it shows that you want to carry as much speed as you can through Copse, but when you get just a little bit wide in a low slung, very low sitting car like this, the curbing, the AstroTurf, and then the grass are quite unforgiving at speed. Obviously some teammates here, by the way, with Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorrison. Brit and a Dutchman walk into a bar. Don't know where that joke goes, but they've got a great little team livery there to celebrate their nationalities likewise. And what a great job Barry Hills has done so far in this championship. Good point scores to be where he is up at the pointy end. And we've got to make note then as well for the way the point scoring works. We do have 2 races to every round, but the championship points is whichever was your best result of the 2 races. So for some of the drivers we've seen, like Donald Poole, who unfortunately ended up in the wall in this race number 1, he has all the motivation to come back for race number 2, because if he gets a good result in race number 2, that's what matters to his championship.
Yeah, that's and if you can get that good result in race 1, I think that just makes you a little bit more relaxed going into race 2. I tell you what, John Morgan doing a super job to defend there as well. But here comes Ragnar Wisloff on the run down the long hanger straight, gets the move done nicely, very clean and smooth there.
Certainly does, and there's no need to panic.
Back into it.
No need to panic for John Morgan, because he knows super quick cutting out Vale on the way into club here, and then he'll be the one picking up the slipstream as they go up the straight where the modern pit lane is, and then absolutely flat out, not a hint of a lift through that Abbey corner. Look how quickly he then gets up into 6th gear, towing on the way into bridge, carries a lot of speed there, just a little bit of a downshift to get the car back to the right hand side of the road to then open up the line through the remainder of the lap here, approaching Woodcote a little bit later.
Yeah, it's actually a lovely car to watch being driven well as it is here with John Morgan, because the flowing lines are so important. You can't kind of dive into the corner late on the brakes and then try and squirt it out. The car just doesn't have the power for that. You've got to use those slicks and wings, and you can see the drivers just making a nice smooth arc through the corner. Really nice to watch.
So Super Pack racing early, starting to see a little bit of breakaway from the peloton maybe. I think you kind of got 5 cars up front with Ragnar Wisloff, John Morgan, Donald Federer, Mike McCormick and Paul Stump. And what I love, and what we all love about 60 Plus Racing Adventures is at any point in any race there is somewhere to look and the drivers are having a battle. No one ever has a boring race in this series. From the top to the middle to the tail of the field, there's someone your skill level, someone your speed to race. And right now it's happening between Mike Grandy, who leads a little pack in 11th, Randy Shoemake we ride on board with, and just behind him Beasley, Eugene Clark and Peter Holstrom. So I think one little mistake could lose you 5 positions, but in the same breath, a really good lap. You could pass a car coming down towards Stowe, you could pass a car in towards Bridge here. You really could move quickly in these little packs.
Fastest lap of the race so far for Russ Addy in 6th position, but a little bit of a break up towards the leading pack. He's got 1.2 seconds up to catch the number 54 of Paul Stump. So the former champion Russ Addy has got a bit of work to do, but pace-wise looking very, very strong. Indeed, his fastest lap of the race at 1:36.1. That's over a tenth quicker than our race leader right now.
Kind of
just as I say that,
keep finding
Mike
speed.
McCormick takes it.
Keep finding speed in this car as the races go on and on and on. The tyres do start a little cold, very twitchy, and as they go on lap after lap, not only do they burn the fuel and get lighter, but these tyres do seem to just keep responding, keep giving pace. To about 2/3 of the way through the race is often where we see the fastest laps. Maybe they drop a little performance after that, but they're still going to find speed. And McCormick obviously in great position here to pick up a really strong slipstream. You could see it. You didn't need the gap on the screen. The car lengths were just disappearing in front of our eyes.
Wonderful combination of car and circuit here as well. Just a lovely flow. And I think that the fastest lap of the race, I think, David, is going to be decided on who gets the best draft. And actually getting that perfect draft is going to give you way more lap time than actually nailing every corner. It's so strong.
It really is, and at several places around this lap. This is the biggest complex of slow corners. I'd say the only really slow corners it seems we get on the lap. Here at they make their way through the very long Luffield corner, having just come from Brooklands. But then it's flat out through Woodcote. It's very fast through Copse. It's quick all the way through Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, down towards Stowe, through Club and Abbey. It's really, really quick average speeds for these cars. You see just flirting with that grass on the outside of the curve of Copse. I think that's probably the most dangerous part of the lap.
Yeah, and that's it's really good circuit design as well, because that's where it's so tempting to just straighten up the steering and carry more speed through. So that is the deterrent for it, at least. Interesting that our leading group aren't doing too many wild manoeuvres, and they're actually almost working together. And what that means is that Russ Addy in kind of no man's land there in 6th place in the 111 car, he's actually now back to 1.5 seconds back from the number 54 car of Paul Stump, and that's because he's got no draft to play with, whereas Stump, he's getting pulled along by the group in front of him.
Yeah, Ragnar Wisloff doing good lap times at the lead, and then nothing silly from those behind. They are very comfortably riding along with him with the power of that slipstream, and it is just making it tough for Russ Addy to make progress on the leading group. Here's some moves. Eugene Clark down the inside at Bridge. Marcel's Breuning it was. Cuts his way through. Newish livery for Breuning. I think I remember him in maybe a purple car at previous times, but they've made great use of the iRacing paints to really make that thing look like a can of fizzy drink.
It kind of looks like the old... Remember the old Saubers from... when Red Bull first started sponsoring Formula 1 before they even had their own team.
Yeah, 2002 vibes. Breuning, big brave moves as well, getting down the inside of Copse Corner and making that one stick. So he gets ahead of Douglas Beasley as well, up into the 13th place. And that lap, handily quicker than the next couple of cars ahead, so I think he might be able to bridge the gap to Mike Grandy and Randy Shoemake. It's the leaders. Wisloff's got a bit of a breakaway. Has John Morgan had a bobble on this lap? Because Wisloff looks to have broken the toe. Now Donald Fitterer passing the pole sitter John Morgan.
Looks like it. Well, who was it who said there wouldn't be a breakaway? Well, it might have been me, but anyway, ignore that. But Wisloff has just set the fastest lap of the race on without a toe, 1:35.5. 0.3 of a second quicker than Donald Fitterer's best. So perfect time to lay down a fast lap. In fact, Wisloff was 0.7 of a second quicker than Fitterer last time by. So that is a critical point in this race as we approach half distance.
Zipping along now, 1.7, 1.8 seconds from Wisloff to Fitterer. This might be race-defining kind of little moment for Wisloff, and he is not letting up the pace at all. Now he's got a little bit of time in his pocket. He's trying to really make sure he's the breakaway.
Yeah, I think he's done that already up to 2 seconds now. For Wisloff, it's another really fast lap he's putting in there as well. And for John Morgan, yeah, just hasn't quite been able to match that early pace that he has. Ross Addy, yeah, that gap's pretty steady there as well. And 1:11 of Ross Addy still about 1.2, 1.3 seconds back. He's got work to do if he wants to catch this group. He kind of, David, he needs them to start fighting with each other.
I think he has a chance of catching this group. I think what he doesn't have a chance of now is catching Ragnar Wisloff based on most recent trend. 2 seconds there that he now leads by, though it does yo-yo around a little bit. That unique entry into Club Corner makes it look a little challenging. There seem to be some different lines in play from the drivers, how they try to find the apex on the way through there.
And these are such manoeuvrable cars as well. They've got great aero grip as well, but they just dance around. They're wonderful cars to drive. If you're watching and have an iRacing account, give them a go. Indy Pro 2000, they're fantastic little machines. They do. You make a great point there, David. They for the first couple of laps, though, they are pretty evil. Actually, they are really, really twitchy when those Cooper tires aren't up to temperature.
So this is what we talk about. Something for everyone. Really close between Greg Garris and Gerhardus Jorgensen through Copse Corner. Slightly different lines there. In the blue and yellow, Greg Garris really got his front wing underneath the car in front. I'm trying to look if there's actually a little bit of damage already to the nose cone, or if it's just something painted on there. But what he does have is great stickers on the side pod.
Oh, they're worth at least 0.2 a lap, I would say. Maybe more.
Let's see if they can help him defend. Remember, he's sandwiched between teammates there, and he's going to hold his line, hold his speed, and therefore hold his position between Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorgensen. This little group led by Club Scandinavia driver Ulf Olsen. At a guess, it sounds like a relatively Swedish name.
Yeah, quite possibly, yes. Quite possibly. Well, that gap at the front is still a very healthy amount. Normally the slipstream starts just around a second in gap at 1.8. Ragnar Wisloff looking pretty handy indeed. However, John Morgan has now just put in the fastest lap of the race, 1:35.3. So you're right, David, those lap times, they are tumbling lap by lap.
Greg Garris looking good through some of those corners once again, right to the back of Gerhardus Jorgensen. Through Copse Corner is another place it seems like Greg had a little bit of a pace advantage, but he does something slightly different this time. Hold back. You've really, I think, got to position yourself through this part of the lap to get the throttle open early at Chapel Corner, be able to just have 1 or 2 kilometers an hour more down the hanger straight here, and then the slipstream will do the rest. But in Formula 1 terms, it's kind of like a DRS train, because Jorgensen's going to be hard to pass, while he's also pulling a slipstream off pack leader Ulf Olsen.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, having the car you're chasing, if they've got someone in front of them, it's kind of, yeah, it negates your advantage. Very, very true, indeed. And what was interesting, what we're seeing as well, we made a point of it earlier, 60 plus racing adventures, drivers with a lot of driving experience, whether that be on the sim or otherwise. We're not seeing many rash manoeuvres, David. Very sensible, measured driving. Although I don't know it'd be a good idea for someone in their 60s to drink Red Bull.
Well, I've heard it said many times that there's a saying, there are old pilots and bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. Can the same thing maybe apply to racing drivers? It becomes a little self-selecting past the 60s. Do people prone to incredibly rash decisions statistically make it to that great age in significant numbers? We'll find out. But for Russ Addy, he's finally got a bit of racing to go to do. A couple laps all to his lonesome. He's finally caught someone. Mike McCormick has fallen off a little bit of the group ahead, makes him quite vulnerable. The slipstream gets super strong right before the braking zone down at Stowe, and down the inside goes Russ Addy up into 5th.
Made that look very easy, did Russ Addy. I think he did get held up a little bit last time by. Lap time, the 136.7. Half a second slower than Paul Stump, and quite a bit slower than our race leader as well. So now Russ Addy's got a bit of clean air. He's got 3 seconds to make it back up towards Paul Stump, but he's got to get a shift on. But at the front, Ragnar Wislov, this is a really, really good drive with 6 laps to go, looking strong.
He's just kept that magic number of gap to the drivers behind as well. If he had a mistake through any of the corners that cost him 2 or 3 tenths, suddenly they get back within that magnet snapping range and they'll be all over his rear wing. So I'm sure he's aware to make sure he just pushes hard enough to keep that gap, but actually pushing too hard, trying to go too fast, could be counterproductive with how really, really powerful the slipstream is all the way around this lap. With that in mind, I've been looking at some of the top speed numbers, sort of the VMAX speed trap kind of stuff. Biggest number I can see is from Russ Addy, in fact, 251 kilometers an hour. When we have the qualifying again for just before race number 2, I'm probably going to have a look at that again, because I suggest that could easily be 10 to 15 kilometers an hour faster than these cars are capable of without the powerful tow that they get off each other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Marcellus Bruning in the Red Bull car really charging up. Made an unfortunate mistake early on in the race, but he is putting in some big moves there as he goes right around the outside there. The number 3 of Randy Shoemake gets the job done. Very nice. What can he do in race 2, David? I think but makes a mistake there as well, and Shoemake's going to come back. Running a little bit wide side by side as they come into the left right hander here. Still side by side as well. Shoemake is not letting him have it easy. Still side by side, and Bruning shuts the door and swoops into 11th place.
Great little section of side by side, wheel to wheel racing is what I think I was trying to say. And in the end, Bruning does just manage to win that one. He took a narrow turn into club because of where he was positioned, and that left him vulnerable, and it might have just found a little bit of that grass on the far side of the curb coming off Luffield as well. 5 laps to go as they cross the old start finish line with what's now the old pits at that part of the lap.
So 4 laps to go at the end of this one, and car number 30, Ragnar Wislov, leads by 1.8 seconds, holding on to that well. John Morgan, he's got the fastest lap of the race back again, 135.3. Can he move up to second position with Donald Fitterer? He's maybe just plotting his attack for later on in the race, because if you go by, you know, you can easily be passed straight back again by that slipstream.
Second and third. Pole sitter John Morgan just in behind.
Using all the road and more there, right all over the grass.
And I'm just hearing, remember how close we saw Greg Garris get to Gerhardus Jorgensen earlier? I think they've gotten just a little closer than that. I think I'm hearing. Let's take a look. Okay, all right.
Well held.
Yeah, indeed. So, again, different lines, different speed on the way into club. And Garris has accidentally found a little bit of Gerhardus Jorgensen, just giving him a little tap, knock, hello, and loosened him up a bit there, unfortunately.
Loosened him up in more ways than one. I think that would have been a bit of a moment in the cockpit, but did super well to hang it up, because normally when these cars are so dependent on the aero that when you kind of knock them out of shape, it's very difficult to get it back again.
Now, I think for the race win, you've got a bit of a do-or-die moment here. The gap down to 1.6 seconds. Fitterer faster on the last lap. If he can just chip away another 2 or 3 tenths on this one, we've got a race on our hands and a three-way battle for the win. Wisloff will be trying to just protect a couple of tenths. Fitterer knows where we are in the race, can see the leader in front of him. He's been able to see the leader this whole time. It's only been 1.5, 2 seconds. But just those tantalising final tenths that you need to claw them back have been elusive.
Yeah, it's been a very, very well managed gap so far from Ragnar Wisloff, but it's not over. 3 laps to go and we reach the stripe to come towards the end of this lap. Yeah, getting a good exit here out of Luffield, very, very important, because you carry that all the way down towards Copse and then into the Maggots Beckett section. There's the British Racing Driving Club on the right hand side, sipping some vintage virtual champagne.
I absolutely believe that's probably correct. Wisloff 1/10 quicker than Fitterer on the lap just completed though, so very, very stable gap there. View from third place man. What I love about this section is they sort of go into one corner, have to scrub a little bit of speed, click down one gear, change direction, have to click down another gear, but you don't break in a straight line and go down from 6th to 2nd gear. You kind of bit by bit, corner by corner, needing to get rid of a little bit of speed to get to the line to then open it up and punch out down onto the hanger straight once again. And that gap, 1.3, it's starting to crumble. I think Fitterer is just in the place at the kind of speeds that they're doing where you pick up the slipstream. I think it's just underneath 1.5 seconds you start to get it, and at 1 second it's pretty powerful.
I'd say this is a huge lap from Fitterer. Last time by, actually, Wisloff, our leader, was a 10th of a second quicker than Fitterer, but Fitterer's actually pulling away from Morgan, even with Morgan has the benefit of the slipstream. So this could potentially be the fastest lap of the race here from Fitterer. And yeah, 1.1 second, he's getting close and he's really pushing. Just ran on a little bit wide there, but almost in the couple more good corners, and he could just grab that elusive slipstream then up towards the line. They go. The lap time comes in from Ragnar Wisloff, 1:35.8. It's a 35.4 for Fitterer. Whoa.
Yeah, and only fractions away from his personal best in this race, also a 1:35.4. So he is delivering his best pace right at the end here, just trying every trick in the book to try to get 2 tenths, 3 tenths quicker to Wisloff. I think he's got a good run through Chapel and a good run onto the hanger straight. Just needs to follow in the wheel tracks of the driver in front, try to get a kilometre an hour more to dissolve that gap. I reckon bookmakers would pay pretty even odds in this one. I fancy Wisloff's position only because it's 1.5 laps to go, but Fitterer making a great charge, showing great pace, doing all the right things at this pace.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's doing everything he can as they come up to start the final lap. And again, very close, the penultimate lap, excuse me. And it's below a second now, David. It's game on at the front with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, they're about to start the final lap of the race. It is underneath the second, Ragnar Wisloff to Donald Fitterer. And John Morgan still in tow, still part of the pack as well. Track temperatures are very, very kind to the tyres, so they are still giving performance all the way at the end here, despite the speeds and the high lateral loadings that you're going to get, particularly on the left-hand side tyres. Think about the speed that they carry through Copse, Stowe, Vale and Bridge, many sort of fifth gear corners, absolutely with the downforce throwing the weight on those tyres. This is going to be a great final lap. The lead could change. John Morgan still holds the fastest lap, and back here in 11th, well, Marcellus Breuning's been an excitement machine every lap of the way so far, and it doesn't stop on the final lap as he holds his position bravely around the outside of Copse Corner from the baying pack of Randy Shoemake, Douglas Beasley and Mike Grandy. At the lead though, I've got to know, is Fitterer going to have a last lap lunge with the slipstream? There could be a tiny bit of traffic for them. I suspect that's Mike Roach.
Yeah.
Does it help with Hinder Wisloff? Through
Hinder.
Club.
Massive Hinder. Oh, you can see Fitterer's using all the road and more. I do think that Fitterer's rhythm was really blocked there as well. We could see Fitterer picking the pocket here, David, as they head into the final section.
Final sector, final lap. Ragnar Wisloff's got to dive it down the inside, offline. Fitterer's going to follow him through as well. 2 more corners, realistically speaking. Whisloff might just be able to hold off onto this one, but his heart rate will be as high as Marcellus Breuning's at the end of this one. Final corner, you just got to keep it within track limits for Ragnar Wisloff. The pressure coming to a boil on the final lap, but he holds on to bag another win and keep his championship lead. What a race by Donald Fitterer. Great performance from John Morgan as well, with the pole lap and the podium. Back here, does it look like Breuning is going to hold on to the positions he tried to claw back? And I think he will, from Shoemake and Beasley.
Last few positions to get sorted out then, as well as Richard Colomb in the John Deere back machine. They say nothing runs like a deer. I would say an Indy Pro 2000 car runs pretty close.
Eugene Clark. This is what I was worried about for our leader, Ragnar Wisloff. When you push it out of that slow corner with the traction late on in the race, it can get away from you if you're too eager with the throttle or if you find the grass or the curb. I didn't quite catch which one it was for Eugene Clark. I think he almost gets away without losing a position there, because he does just scramble across the line ahead of David Bradley and Franz Brink. Like I say, those guys there, 50 seconds back off the lead, having their own little battle as well though. Everyone gets something and has something to fight for in this. What a great first race. We've got another 17-lapper coming up a little bit later. Ragnar Wisloff though, he's already bagged the best result he can with a win. Fitterer, Morgan completing that podium. Paul Stump, cheered on by his teammate Steve Greenwood in our YouTube chat, hoping to keep their points haul high. They've been teams champions in seasons gone past as well. Russ Addy, Mike McCormick, Ulf Olsen, Barry Hills, Greg Garris and Gerhardus Jorrison recovering from a cheeky little tap to hold on to a top 10. And Breuning, Shoemake, Beasley, we watched that battle to the line ahead of Grandy, Peter Holstrom, JC Hay, Richard Coulomb, Eugene Clark. A little harder tackle late on, but still got 18th place from David Bradley, Franz Brink. And our last cars, and a lot of cars on the lead lap, it must be said. Gene Moore, Earl Setzer, Richard Varley. Only driver to really fall off the lead lap there, Mike Roach. And even then, only on the final lap in the final sector, wasn't it? And unfortunately for Donald Poole, we saw his incident in Copse Corner that saw that car kind of get written off against the wall on the outside there. Do you know what my second favourite part about this championship is, Peter? It's not just watching that racing. It's talking to our great drivers. They are a very unique set of characters, sort of in the world of sim racing. So we are first off going to go to Ragnar Wisloff. Well, has your heart rate normalized? Because great work to break away from the pack, and then they almost got you at the end.
Yeah, yes. Those last few corners, I agree with you. They certainly got my pulse up, but it ended well. So I guess it's in the past. So that's it's all good.
We saw the championship standings just before this race. It's pretty tight up there as well. So I'm sure that, I mean, you want to win no matter what, but it's pretty handy for you at this point of the championship as well.
I think it's way too early to talk about the standings at the end of the season. We're having fun. It's one race at a time. It's very quick to make a mistake in a race and then in another race, and you don't have any points for that race, and so it's too early to talk about that. But certainly it helps to have some good placings. Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is a pretty interesting kind of circuit for these cars as well. Almost seems like your average speed here is quicker than it would be on the Phoenix Oval.
Yes, it's it's an old style circuit. I guess it suits the age of the drivers in this league. I remember going here in the early 1990s and watch Formula One, and it was exactly this layout. It's a circuit with with some quirks. There are no hard braking zones on this track. They're in this layout, so there are no easy, obvious overtaking spots and no very long straights. So it can be a bit of a progression, I think. I think you did see some overtakes, but not too many. Not like in Road Atlanta, where it's very, very difficult to break away.
Well, congratulations to you on this race win. Fingers crossed to see you again in the race number 2, and always a pleasure to chat.
Thanks, David.
Let's keep going down that podium, Peter, because what a performance we saw from Donald Fitterer.
Donald, welcome to the RaceSpotTV commentary box. I tell you what, you were charging those last few laps. Tell us about it. Tell us about being there in the cockpit.
Oh my gosh, I'm sweating so much. I was pushing as hard as I could without, there was a couple times I made little tiny mistakes, but nothing that lost me speed, but it would just made me, kind of think, hey, don't push too hard.
Well, I mean, yeah, you were on that kind of best lap of the race pace there, Donald. Were you at maximum attack? Were you prepared to risk the finish to try and catch the lead?
Well, once I saw we were catching Mike Roach, I said, maybe I have a chance to sneak by if Ragnar doesn't handle that pass very well. But Mike kind of slowed both of us down. And my goal at that point was not to have a three-way wreck, or maybe four-way.
Well, I'm sure it doesn't come as a surprise to our viewers how very wise of you for the 60 plus racing adventures drivers. Goals for race 2 coming up after that result there. A win possible in race 2, would you say?
Again, it all depends on how well I qualify. Being up front makes all the difference. And hey, I want to just put a shout out that I'm going to turn 68 on November 2nd, and I'm getting married on November 12th.
Well, congratulations! That's fantastic. That's fantastic news. It's hopefully your good lady allows you to keep racing with us.
Well, I moved into her house, and my racing simulator is in her basement in a really nice carpeted area, so I think she's okay with it.
You've chosen well, sir. Good luck in the qualifying. Good luck for race 2.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Fantastic to hear from those drivers and the amazing battle we saw at the end. And yeah, I told you, great guys. One further step down the podium though, let's grab John Morgan and say congratulations as well on a great race there. You got another pole position in you for race number 2 again?
I don't know. Those Ragnar and Donald both can certainly put times, and we're all so close. It's just how how perfectly you nail that second lap. And I got a little bit better out of it the first race, but and I'll certainly give it my shot. But yeah, it's fun when it's this close.
Your view of the last 2 laps of that race would have been pretty spectacular. Ragnar Wisloff getting just a little larger in front of you, and the timing not quite working out, but certainly built to a crescendo.
Yeah, I think the fact that Donald and I kind of stayed in that draft train, I think that moved us up a little bit, and we were obviously both pushing really hard, so that tended to close the gap as well. And then it just sort of all came together in that last lap, and I got kind of tangled up there and didn't quite see how they finished, other than seeing Ragnar had won it. But yeah, it was good to catch him and kind of keep it tight for the top 3.
Racing is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Tell us then about the season generally, because of course we only get the privilege at RaceSpotTV of broadcasting a couple rounds a season. Since we last saw you at the Indianapolis road course, how's it been going?
Pretty good. I missed one race, but other than that, I've been pretty consistent. I won one of the races last week at Road Atlanta through a little bit of luck. But yeah, it's been a good season. It's as long as the racing sort of is as competitive in the quality of the racing that we get in this league, it's just, every week is just a lot of fun. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We love covering it. Is there anything from the first race with regards to the racecraft and the pack racing that you take as learnings for race number 2? Any way you're going to approach it differently, not necessarily in qualifying or hot lapping, but in the racing situation?
Not for me. I mean, this track really, that the only place to get by is the end of that one long straightaway, and those turns 2 through whatever 4 or 5 to get onto that straightaway are so critical and complex that it's just really a matter of nailing those. If somebody makes a mistake, then I'll take a shot. But again, we're so close in times that I'm not one of those guys who's willing to risk a big move. I'd rather just pressure the guy and see if he can pay attention for 17 laps.
Yeah, awesome. So, best of luck to you with defending Super 70s champion, with the race coming up, and with the rest of the season.
Thank you, guys.
Well, race 2 will be coming up in not too long for 60 Plus Racing Adventures here from Silverstone. Before they can go racing, they're going to have a brand new qualifying session, which we're going to bring to you as well. Looking forward to that one, because it does require a lot of commitment around here, it seems, to set a great qualifying lap, Peter.
Yeah, really, really, really important to get that lap in, and not to step over track limits as well, because that is when your lap is invalidated. But we'll find out after the break just how well they get on with that qualifying effort.
So stick with us on RaceSpotTV. Qualifying and race number 2 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures at historic Silverstone is coming up. Race 2 of 60 plus racing adventures from Silverstone is upon us. Great close racing in race number 1, hoping for the same again as the Indy Pro 2000 cars were to life around the incredibly high speeds of historic legacy Silverstone. No Vale Corner, it cuts straight into Club, no Abbey Chicane, and of course the amazingly fast committed section that is Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Drivers, before they can go racing for race number 2, have got to qualify for race number 2. Qualifying is underway right now. The drivers just starting to take to the timing line for their first of 2 flying laps. David Haynes here with Peter Mackay, Hugo Lewis producing. Peter, we definitely heard from John Morgan and others post race number 1 just how to attack this qualifying session. John Morgan saying it's all about your commitment on that second lap. We certainly saw in racing conditions that the tyres keep giving and keep giving.
They did, yeah, all the way to the checkered flag. And I tell you what, that charge at the end there, how exciting was that? Just in those last few laps, nearly got it. But we'll see how they get on in this race too. Getting that qualifying lap in is going to be very important. Wasn't so much movement up and down the pack as we expected.
It's a really big equaliser, that slipstream, certainly it seems. Mike McCormick is on his first lap, and the name of the game typically tends to be banker lap, full attack lap. And so for Mike McCormick, you don't want to bin the car, you don't want to throw it away on this first attempt. You want to use it to put a time to the board, keep preparing those tyres, keep warming them up, equalising the pressure, getting them towards their best to attack on the second lap. So far on the first flying laps, Mike McCormick in the 99. How are you tracking? Pretty well. Through 3 of my 4 timing sectors, he's going to come to the line, which is just out of Woodcote Corner. The first time for him is one of the first times to the board. It's 36 flat. Memory pole was definitely in the 35 or 34s for race number 1. Ragnar Wisloff there is his first time count. It does 35.7, but now it's full attack from Cops Corner. And this is the lap that someone is going to set the pole time.
Well, let's see then. Wisloff on top of the shop at the moment by 0.3 of a second. That's a fair advantage. But Fitterer right there in second, same order as we saw them finish the last race. And Wisloff, yeah, he really left it, really had the heart rate going with Fitterer running him down. But let's see what Fitterer can do here as well. He's got 0.3 to find. Oh, a little bit wide there, would you say, David? But can't afford to run too wide and have that lap nullified. It's always that fine balance in qualifying, pushing right up to the edge but not stepping over it.
Still personal best through that sector for him. Now he's just got to complete it in the final handful of corners. Priory, Brooklands, Luffield, Woodcote, in that order it goes. Fitterer, he is keeping it tidy, a little wide on the way in, should hopefully let him square this off on the exit and race towards the timing line and the checkered flag on his second lap. Dole Fitterer is going to improve, but how much can he steal a pole position? Puts in 35.8. Wisloff is still going to hold that. Wisloff is improving. Barry Hills also improving all through these sectors.
You can hear Barry just desperately trying to get back on the throttle. Just, come on, let's go. And then the run through Woodcote now to the timing line. What is it going to be? 36.3 for Barry Hills. In 8th position he goes.
At the very, very, very top of the timing there. Wisloff improving only fractionally. John Morgan finding a bit of time. 0.02 of a second is all there is to separate them. Wisloff still holding on to pole position. Only a handful of drivers left with another lap to attack. Gahardis Yorison is one of them. Randy Shoemake, I think, has put his 2 lap times to the board already. Definitely one of the drivers we saw at the very tail end of qualifying for race number 1. Just stays out there on track. You get the 10 minutes, just keeps practicing, warming up, seeing how the tyres are going to go as you push in through a stint. And Gene Moore, I think a little late to the qualifying, still has some laps to go. And Richard Varley likewise.
Yeah, last chance saloon then. Let's see what Randy Shoemake can do. 136.3 is his best. Looking good as he comes to the timing line. Yes, he improves. 136.167. That puts him 10th spot. Oh, I like this livery.
Bet you do.
That's got Richie Hearn vibes, that one.
It's got classic IndyCar written all over it, that's for sure. It's also got beer written all over it. Richard Varley, how are you going to do? That looked like his second lap jumps him up into 14th. So he definitely found some time on that second lap, as most do. Gene Moore, like we said, a little late out on track to this qualifying session. The action is typically pretty front-loaded into the 10-minute session, so it's good to see Gene Moore still out there. Minty Madness in effect. So yeah, this is his second flying lap. You can see the first lap, 137.999. How much is he going to find on the second lap? Currently sitting 20th. 0.2 of a second would give him a couple spots. Half a second would give him a couple more.
Yeah, just the tiniest bit of lap time can really put you a couple of rows up the order. We know how important that is.
Maybe one of the slowest corners on the circuit. He picks up a bit of wash in the front end, a little bit of understeer at Brooklands. Long right hand and loaded Luffield. And then here he comes towards the timing line. It's definitely going to be an improvement, but the number says only a couple thousandths of a second for Gene Moore. That'll be confidence inspiring to see him go from lap 1 to lap 2 and manage to keep the pace and put in 2 valid lap times at a circuit where there's a couple of places you could throw a lap time away, leaving the circuit outside of Cops Corner, for example, getting a little too brave at Maggots Beckett's Chapel, and it also seems like Stowe Corner. The bit of off-camber nature invites you to run out wide. Randy Shoemake demonstrates perfectly as he measures it out. Less than a minute left to the session. I don't think anyone is going to be able to usurp Ragnar Wisloff, but again, so close up top there. 1/10 of a second backwards from your pole sitter, and you're talking about Russ Addy on the 3rd row in 5th place. So little to separate Ragnar Wisloff from John Morgan, from Greg Garris and Donald Fitterer. Let's talk about that's a great performance from Greg Garris. Remember, he was battling over 10th, 11th, 12th kind of spots in race number 1. He's now going to start on the inside row, on the inside lane of the 2nd row, I should say. So he's put in a great performance and just needs to back it up in the race, keep going with the pack that will inevitably form. Looking at that grid now for race number 2, Ragnar Wisloff and John Morgan for the 2nd time form the front row, but it's roles reversed as Wisloff has the pole and John Morgan is 2nd. Greg Garris and Donald Fitterer the 2nd row. What a performance late on Donald Fitterer gave us, saving the best for the final couple of laps. Russ Addy better qualifying from one of the championship contenders there to start out of 5th in this 2nd race. And Mike McCormick is 6th. Ulf Olsen, Barry Hills, his teammate Paul Stump, and Randy Shoemaker's the top 10. Sorry, Gerhardus Jorgensen and Barry Hills are the teammates. and Douglas Beasley 12th. That's sort of the top half of the field. Got Bruce Poole, Richard Varley in Peter Mackay's favourite livery, Mike Grandy in a bit of a US F1 style scheme, Richard Coulomb, Eugene Clark, David Bradley to 18th. We've retained most of our drivers from race number 1, and in fact all 23 of them have set a qualifying time, so no one missing out on qualifying for race number 2. Peter Hallstrom, Gene Moore, JC Hay, Earl Setzer and Marcellus Breuning, 23 cars for race number 2. Slough will know from race number 1 what the opening of this race is like, with the really powerful slipstream, and how important it might be to put some air between himself and those he's competing with, and not be easily done with great fierce competitors right in behind him. John Morgan, Greg Garris, his main championship rival, it must be said, Russ Addy, here he is. A good view, the lead not too far away from him. And the track conditions, the weather for race number 2, pretty well identical to race number 1. In fact, I'd say almost directly identical to race number 1. 20 in the air, 23 on the track. Peak of summer in Scotland.
Oh, this would be record temperature in Scotland, David. If we were
I'm led to believe 20 in the air, clear skies is tops off.
Taps off.
Exactly. That's what I meant to say.
Taps off. Yes, absolutely. The queue on the ice cream van is very long in this sort of temperature.
Imagine an ice cream van that plays that trumpet song.
They would have absolutely roaring trade, surely.
Yep. All the kids and adults alike around would be racing in, and
then they'd sell more ice cream because everyone just couldn't help but boogie into the beat, and the ice cream would fall on the floor and they'd have to buy another one.
And I'd get hungry at the start of every race spot broadcast.
Well, our thing is having ice cream.
It's about time I got me some more. What's your thoughts then on this grid for race number 2? I think my key points is much stronger qualifying from Russ Addy should mean he can stay with the leading pack, and our front row the same as last race, except they're on opposite sides. It's Wisloff just pipping Morgan this time rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I think definitely Russ Addy being in that leading group is definitely going to play a factor. I wonder actually if we'll not have quite as much of an orderly train. I think we might see people with more ambitions after that first race. They might be making some bigger moves earlier on, so we could be in for a wee cracker here.
Pay that through the final sector, the only real slow part of this lap. It's the historic layout. That means no Abbey chicane. It means no tight Vale corner before the club corner takes them onto the back straight. Some witness marks of a little bit of excursionary work through the gravel in the final sector. Hopefully a clean race for all. The pace car does awesome excursionary work as well on its way to pit entry. Ragnar Wisloff, the pole sitter, waiting for Barney's green flag. The field at 80 kilometres an hour. Big launch from Wisloff. John Morgan in second, a little on his own, and they're looking for single file through Cops Corner. Russ Addy already on the attack though. From fifth, he was looking at fourth briefly. Some drama for Jorison, who is quite slow in the runoff of Cops.
Yeah, and decided not to rush back onto the circuit, waiting for a gap to come up there, so loses a lot of spaces there, does Jorison. But great getaway from Wisloff, got himself some vital time earlier on, but John Morgan right there in the slipstream, as is Donald Fitterer as well. We saw how good he was in the latter stages of race 2, so if he's this quick early on, he could be a threat for the win. Whoa!
Greg
on the edge
Gareth
there.
trying to hold position around the outside, had a little bit of a wobble, saw his life flash before his eyes. Maybe he got so close to that grass, spearing off and losing almost every position that there would be to lose, but he keeps it on the road and only loses out to Mike McCormick. And of course Russ Addy, who he was battling with. Addy looked like he might have had that position already. Ferocious on the opening lap with the slipstream in full effect. Wislaw from his great start now only leads by 3/10 though. John Morgan in second, Donald Fitterer in third. Will he be maybe saving a little bit of the tyre, a little bit of the performance for late on again? And I think the driver with the performance and everything to gain and nothing to lose is Russ Addy. A win for him stems the bleeding in the championship.
Yeah, these are going to be this critical race as well, because there's some drivers who will be able to improve upon their position from race 2. I guess then, David, if you're Ragnar Wislaw, this race is almost inconsequential for him. This is just purely for pride because he's got the win in the bag already.
Consider this scenario though. He's got the win. He bags the 40-ish points. He wins again. That helps him extend his championship because no one else gets winning points.
Gets the win.
Whereas,
so you're yes.
Yeah. If Russ Addy comes through and wins this, and Ragnar Wislaw parks it, then they pretty well leave Silverstone with exactly the same gap in the championship that they arrived with, trading blows, as it were. So certainly for Wislaw to go back to back creates a guarantee that his championship lead is bigger than what it was a couple hours ago.
By basically preventing someone else from getting that win. Very true. Very, very, very true. That's right. Right on board with number 99, Mike McCormick. Oh, this is the car just twitching a little bit there on entry. Car can be very nervous in these early stages. Yeah. Really does take a few laps to get that heat into that tyre.
It's funny, on the cold tyres, they are super snappy. They warm up, the grip comes to them, and then you get to late on in these races. The car's not so snappy, but the rear does still slide further, but it's just catchable. Oh, that was the end of Donald Poole in race number 1. Somehow, he just holds on to it. Scary moment for Donald Fitterer. You saw no grip, no control. He was in the Winter Olympics tobogganing on that one.
Oh dear, so he's got a lot of work to do then, has Donald Fitterer. 2.1 seconds back. We know how fast he is late in the race, but he's got to switch that pace on right now to get back up to that leading pack.
Find himself along with his teammate of Mike McCormick. They've both featured very strongly inside of the top 10 and in fact inside of the top 5 of both races so far, so potentially a good points haul for them. Here's what it looked like. Maybe aero wash off of John Morgan, and then that's just the slipperiest evil patch before you get to the tarmac and on the far side of the curb. It's just a danger alley. That's the valley of the shadow of death for sure.
Oh yes, I think he kept his foot in it though by the looks of it. It didn't look as full commitment there, at least from Donald Fitterer.
I think the trick to something like that is you've got to keep half throttle in, because if you keep full throttle in, you know, you're carrying all the speed, you're still in trouble. You completely get out of the throttle and the car becomes super twitchy as well. My experience of narrowly avoiding wiping race cars across walls suggests that just a little bit of throttle keeps you balanced and level-footed.
But yeah, good point. Very good point. It just keeps you just that little bit out of trouble. Keeps the car as even as possible. 111. Russ Addy, fastest lap of the race so far. He did this in race 1, did 1:35.6 last time by 4/10 quicker than our leader. So Addy definitely the driver on the move in that number 111 machine.
Those VMAXs, those speed trap speeds, Ragnar Wislaw obviously very, very quick around the lap, but he hasn't had a toe off of anyone, and so the highest speed he's been able to nudge is 240. Russ Addy in that third position with the double slipstream, nudging 249 and might even get a little bit more speed later on. So you can tell exactly what that slipstream means. It means 5 or 6 kilometers an hour through this last section as they take the Abbey Kink flat out, off of Chapel and all the way down towards Stowe. Everywhere that you're in full throttle in 4th, 5th or 6th gear, you are just inching your way. It's almost sort of walking speed, walking down that gap, a 6 kilometer an hour delta.
Yeah, it is certainly a very, very small difference for sure. Wisloff leads away by half a second at the moment, then it's another half a second back to Russ Addy, but on the lap charts, yeah, Addy, actually John Morgan the quickest, just right there, just puts in a quick lap. Both Morgan and Addy quicker than Wisloff at this stage, so Wisloff under pressure as we approach 1/3 distance.
Great shot, just touching enough of the curb to open up the flowing sequence of corners, carry your speed out of there. John Morgan just targeting the rear wing of the car in front, all lined up down the straight. Teammates maybe working together in the background there, 4th and 5th, Mike McCormick and Donald Fitterer, to try to remain with this. Fitterer probably still seeing the cross in his peripheral vision, hands maybe a little shaky after that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting having in these sorts of races where the slipstream is very important, having a close ally, a fast ally to work with is very, very important. And yeah, McCormick and Fitterer, they have the opportunity here to try and work with one another, to try and move forward and get into that leading battle, that podium fight.
You can see the gaps on the timing column, but it is still your top 9 all together as they're about to start lap 6 of this 17. Greg Garris, very racy in race number 1. We saw him going back and forth with Gerhardus Jorrison and Barry Hills. Well, he finds himself after that great qualifying back here in 6th, but the reality is only 2 seconds away from the lead of the race, right in this fight, and looking to go around the outside. No, you are joking me. Trying to pass through with Maggots Beckett's there on Mike McCormick. He had a great run. He's forced McCormick offline, so he might just get this. That is a very unconventional overtaking manoeuvre. They kept trying to tell me you could only pass down the hangar straight into Stowe.
I think McCormick made a completely separate mistake afterwards. It seemed like he'd got clear and then made a mistake of his own, just maybe missed his braking point perhaps, or at least or turn-in point even. But McCormick definitely coming off worse there, and Garris up to 5th. But that was an audacious manoeuvre, but what that's meant is just the car, the top 9 were all in a line, and then all of a sudden, no they're not. Fitterer has 1.1 seconds back to Garris after that little exchange.
Drives a little bit of a wedge, so Garris has got to show us his best to hook up to this group of now the leading 4. Not much to cover them as well. John Morgan still being an object closer than it may appear in the mirrors of Ragnar Wisloff.
Interesting. No, Morgan getting close to Wisloff, but not quite getting up close and personal just yet. Wisloff actually responding, going a 0.1 of a second quicker than Morgan, but Fitterer then puts in the fastest lap of the race, 1:35.4, quite a lot quicker, 0.3 quicker than anyone in front of him.
Fitterer back with the mega speed then that he demonstrated in the final 5 laps of race number 1. Almost a little holding pattern for these leading 4, Wisloff, Morgan, Addy and Fitterer. Going on in the background there a little bit, Ulf Olsen and Paul Stump, 7th and 8th. Olsen round the outside, Stump down the inside of Stowe. We've seen both lines work. Olsen's not scared around the outside. I think Stump is just ahead, needs to be able to chop across and take his line through club corner, which he just does.
Running the classic duck egg blue and orange colours of Gulf Oil. looking very good there, the 54 stump. Now, here we go. The holding pattern might be about to be broken as we approach half race distance here. Big fight on. Fitterer definitely the driver with the pace, but does he have the track position to capitalise? Russ Addy is going to be a very tough adversary for Fitterer. He's going to have to get that move done quick if he wants to run down our race leader, Wisloff.
Looked like Morgan got a great run off Club and then through the Abbey kink, and by the time they got to Bridge, he was just under a bit of pressure. And they talk about a tough place to pass, because you see they go through in fourth gear underneath that bridge and through the fast corner. Not a massive braking zone. You've got to be really close all the way alongside if you're going to try to attempt to pass there.
So half race distance passed then, and we've got 4 strong contenders in for the lead of this race. Wisloff just opening up a couple of extra tenths there to Morgan that last time by. That's quite helpful. So Russ Addy, if he wants to get into this leading battle, now might be the time to make a break and try and make a move on Morgan.
Fantastic close racing from the historic Silverstone. Again, towards the bridge, Donald Fitterer just looking across, looking back.
Yeah, Fitterer certainly looking very racy, that's for sure. Just trying to make his way through. McCormick, he'll be ruining that mistake in the 99 car. He's got a lot of pace, but now really caught back in traffic.
Sure is. He was all over the back of Ulf Olsen. Olsen was over the back of Stump. Cops Corner, where McCormick's race nearly came completely undone. Same for Donald Paul, same for Fitterer. Here's the view of Randy Shoemake on Mike McCormick. And I like this. So then it's all the way to the left before Chapel, late apex at Chapel. You open up the throttle well towards the only passing opportunity. You sort of take a little bit of the pain early to try to get a good run on the hanger straight. Yep, over second place, Russ Addy cutting his way past John Morgan. Lets Ragnar Wisloff build out 1.4 seconds, and not going to be the optimal line through Club Corner here for Addy as well. Narrow on the entry, has to cut back on the exit. Fitterer might now sense it's his opportunity to try to get on by John Morgan as well. We'll see what happens there, but Addy has a big job on his hands now to not let Wisloff get a breakaway again.
Yeah, 1.3 seconds is the difference. We saw Wisloff sort of fade in the latter stages of the race in race 1. Can Addy come on strong like Fitterer did in race 1 and try and close that gap down? He's got work to do. And this is a chance as well for Fitterer to try and pounce when Morgan's rhythm will have just been upset a little bit there. So this is a great opportunity for him in that red number 3 car.
1.3 seconds. Which way that gap goes by 1/10. Super critical for the fortunes of your leader and your defending champion. That's the battle. Russ Addy, defending champ. Ragnar Wisloff, current points leader, and it looks like 7 laps for them to slog it out at the end of this second race. John Morgan, oh so familiar with the position he's currently in, minding his own business, staying in touch, and hoping to pounce late on.
Yeah, John Morgan just keeping tabs on Russ Addy here as well. It'd be interesting to see what the lap time difference is between Addy and Wisloff on this last lap, because that's on this lap, because this is one where Addy's got a little bit more of a clean run of things. However, Morgan, he's showing a wheel there, looking to try and get the position back. They've got to be careful though, not fight too much, because they'll let Wisloff get away. as they come up through Brooklands and then round towards the tricky right-hander of Luffield. It just seems like it goes on forever, this sort of omega-shaped corner, and then hard.
You never know when to pick up the throttle. Just no clue. And there's a variety of different lines as well. Everyone seems to be sort of hugging the inside all the way around in these cars. In higher powered, lower grip machines, you often see drivers kind of diamond it off, breathe out wide in the middle of the corner to then pick up a late apex. Doesn't seem to be optimal for these cars though.
No, definitely not. I think you're right. Yeah, it's for motorcycle fans, yeah, sort of like 250cc style, where you're carrying corner speed as much as possible, rather than a big superbike where, yeah, like you say, you would diamond the corner or V it off and get that power on as early as possible. But these cars have very, very little power, so it's all about carrying that momentum. With 5.5 laps to go in this one, and Russ Addy last time by, he was over a tenth quicker than Wisloff. 6 laps to go. He's going to have to be a bit more than that, but he only needs to have a couple of laps like that to get into that slipstream window of about a second or so.
I think we're sort of tracking towards a similar grandstand finish of race number 1, aren't we? This tantalising gap between first and second. Second place just needs to find a little bit to get into the magic window, dissolve that lead, and show us a battle for the win. And it's a little deja vu potentially for Ragnar. It's precisely the kind of gap, the kind of situation he was in this point of the race, in race number 1.
Yeah, almost identical. Yeah, Ragnar Wisloff, 1.7 seconds, although I think he has responded on that lap. Yes, he has. Brilliant lap there from Ragnar Wisloff, almost at his fastest pace, and pulls half a second out of Russ Addy last time by. Huge lap from Wisloff.
Yep, and at a critical time, within a tenth of the fastest lap of the race, which of course belongs already to Ragnar Wisloff, so it's pace that others will really, really struggle to be able to match at the moment. You can see it just bobbles around 1.4, 1.8. John Morgan, have you had enough? He's looking down the inside of Stowe, and if he can't match Russ Addy's pace, then this is game over for the pursuing pack, and Wisloff just extending his lead a little bit. Russ Addy refuses to give up. John Morgan refuses to give up. Donald Fitterer doesn't know which way to look or which way to go, and it's side by side, 3 corners in a row. Flat out, wheel to wheel. They're going to go flat out, side by side through the kink too. Donald Fitterer, are you thinking about it? He's a little too smart for that one. They both swoop around the outside of John Morgan in bridge corner, and Wisloff counts his lucky stars, 2.5 seconds his lead.
Yeah, just that little exchange there has lost a huge amount. Last time by, these 3 in second, third and fourth position, Addy, Fitterer and Morgan, they lost half a second to Wisloff, and I dare say they'll lose even more on this lap as they come through to complete lap 12.
Look at what it's done. Barry Hills,
huge.
Greg Garris,
absolutely huge.
Hello.
They've lost a second. Russ Addy lost a second to Wisloff on that last lap.
Yeah, these are the winners. They just slipped off before when Barry Hills couldn't catch Russ Addy. Well, now they have. It's been a great race from Barry Hills as well. He started 8th, he's running 5th, now he's picked up a cent on a podium. We saw the championship standings at the start of coverage. He's right amongst there as well, scoring good points for that important team's championship as well. If you, for example, want to compare these red Mighty Raven cars of McCormick and Fitterer against Yorison and Barry Hills, well, it looked like a Mighty Raven race number 1, but suddenly it almost looks like the combination of Yorison or Hills could end up being the winners in that sort of sense, outscoring.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, it just shows you if you just keep in the game, makes a big difference. But yeah, that battling between Addy Fitterer and Morgan has really compromised them a little bit. However, Addy, he's opened up a gap now of about half a second from Fitterer. Yeah, so there's a little bit, and Morgan actually dropping back. Morgan's had a difficult second half to this race, it must be said.
Addy's just set the fastest lap of the race. Head down, which of course does actually make you go faster in an open cockpit. Car 3-1, you cannot on the way into Maggots and Beckett's. Well, it was the 99er Mike McCormick who just had to pull out of that one to avoid an accident. Paul Stump and Ulf Olsen are going to be able to keep their positions. Different lines, different speeds off a Copse corner. And having checked up out of that, Mike McCormick now under pressure. Olsen looking for a position. Randy Shoemake looking for a position. Too wide, too deep on the way into Stowe. Olsen looking like a winner. Can Shoemake put the drive down to finish that move? Yes, he can. So all change in this group.
Yeah, Addy took half a second out of Wisloff last time by with that best lap of the race. Really, really impressive, and clean air, no draft whatsoever in that fast lap there from Russ Addy. 135.396 for him, and he holds now a half second gap back to Fitterer, but this could be a quick lap from Fitterer actually as well as we come up to complete lap 14.
We learnt Fitterer is no slouch at this part of the race. The feeling of the car with a little more movement, a little more play in it, not snappy but slidey and catchable, can favour him for sure. Another lap completed, 3/10 in the favour of Russ Addy, just shy of the fastest lap of the race by about a 1/10.5 for Donald Fitterer in third. So they are still flying along.
Yeah, Fitterer, the quickest car that time by. Is it going to be a little too late? One thing you can say about the number 30 of Ragnar Wisloff, he's handled these gaps very, very well. Even if there's been a late charge, he's managed the situation beautifully. But I think the battle is going to be over second place. Addy's got to look back to Fitterer, I think, and that might be what keeps Wisloff just that little bit safer as well. As we've got about 2.5 laps to go.
Mike McCormick, now he had dropped back to 10th. He was right with the battling group. This is how. I think it gets worse before it gets better. That grass does not look grippy. No, he parks it. Wow, surprising for McCormick. About to see the penultimate lap. Ragnar Wisloff, it's just all about that lead. It's in such a state of flux, could go any way.
Yeah, that second place is, I think that's what it's going to come down to as well. Wisloff looks safe at the moment, especially considering Addy's going to have to, I think, start defending in a moment, because Fitterer just getting closer and closer, right on his tail as they come into the fast swoops of Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. And then I tell you what, if Fitterer can get a good run out of here, whoa, nearly banging wheels there.
Randy Shoemake getting a little aggressive against Paul Stump, trying to force a way through that didn't look like it would work. Now he drops back into that toe, super tactical to get into the slipstream just to give himself 1 or 2 kilometers an hour. He's very well positioned, middle of the road with the inside line, good momentum, nose ahead on the way into Stowe. Should be able to, carry that speed off. So a far more traditional move ends up sticking. He's optimistic, a little look early on in the lap. Maybe just setting him up for that.
Yeah, got the move done well there. Just set it up very, very nicely, did Shoemaker, but Stump's not going to let him have it easy in that 54 car. Whoa. He has to back out of it just at that last moment. It's going to come down to a bit of a grandstand finish here as well, as we're nearly on to final lap with Wisloff with a 2.2 second advantage.
Yep, white flag out. and it is looking pretty good for race leader Ragnar Wisloff. Just enough in his pocket that he doesn't need to give 100%, he needs to give 99%, be consistent and just hit those lines. And the lines are pretty challenging through that part of the lap. 4 or 5 apexes in a row, just trying to carry speed onto the hanger straight to avoid the slipstream of those immediately behind. Does Fitterer think about a look? Russ Addy can maybe stop thinking about the lead and have to start thinking about defending a second place. Joel Fitterer, he's already banked a second place, so it doesn't make a great deal of difference to him. For Russ Addy, race number 1 was not 100% to his liking. This will be improving his position and his championship haul. For Ragnar Wisloff, he has been a Mr. Silverstone so far. More corners for him to look for the clean sweep, only missing 1 pole position. He's heading for 2 race wins, 1 pole. The historic Silverstone layout, a little wide of Luffield, but a better winning margin than race number 1. He's going to sweep the races at Silverstone. Ragnar Wisloff extending the championship lead. Addy holding on for second, Fitterer for third. Plenty of battles up and down the field to come to the checkered flag, including Clark and Varley. Clark started 17th, trying to hold on to 12th. It's about to drive off of Luffield to close it out, to finish up the lap. He'll just do it. But what about this? Coulomb and Bradley in front of them, JC Hay and Gene Moore fighting. Everyone on the lead lap to the end here, trying to hold on. And JC Hay will fend off Gene Moore. Behind them, squirrely moment for Richard Coulomb as the Canadian was wheel to wheel with David Bradley.
Such clean racing, isn't it? It's a really, really respectful stuff, but great run from Ragnar Wisloff. Really managed that gap very, very nicely.
Another exciting race, but it's the same man on top. Ragnar Wisloff, Russ Addy, Donald Fitterer at the podium. John Morgan back in 4th ahead of Barry Hills, Greg Garris, Ulf Olsen, Randy Shoemake, Paul Stump and Douglas Beasley. So race 2 looking an improvement for Hills, Garris, Olsen. Ragnar Wisloff, a picture of perfection. Rest of the results out of the race 2. Bruce Poole, Eugene Clark, Richard Varley. Look at how close some of these competitors were. We didn't get all the time to focus on their battles, but everyone, top to bottom, racing in a very similar style. And you can see Mike McCormick in the end, 1 lap down, and retirements for Mike Grandy and Earl Setzer. Peter, I reckon it's your turn then to speak to our race winner, Ragnar Wisloff.
It was running wide. Sorry.
Ragnar, welcome to the RaceSpotTV commentary box. What an evening of racing for you. 2 wins in the bag. Did you expect to have such an edge out there?
No, you never expect it. There are so many quick guys, and you can never expect anything like that. The best you could do is practice and make sure that you are as well prepared as you can, and then do your best. And this time, that was enough. But other times, it will not be enough.
And tell us about the kind of preparation stage. What's the secret? Is it just sheer hours, or is there little tricks that you have in your practice regime to get that speed?
There's a lot of time. There's a lot of laps. Typically, a few hundred laps of practice. But practice needs to be it needs to be with a purpose. So I also study my telemetry, and I've been focusing on a few corners because the tires get very, very hot. For instance, at the end of Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, at the entry to turn 6, once you have left that right-hander, the front left is screaming for mercy. And so you just need to make sure that you have a little bit in reserve before you ask it to give its last little grip, so that you can accelerate as quickly as you can onto the hanger straight. If you have someone on your tail or you're attacking, it's the only place to pass is at the end of hanger straight on this particular layout. So, and there's a few other places as well, and you need to get the lines right. You need to be able to do this lap after lap after lap, even if it's very hectic, like you're racing with someone very close. So there's a lot of preparation. Yeah.
Oh, it certainly paid off. Paid off for this afternoon. I mean, looking ahead to the rest of the season, any other tracks that that you're highlighting that you think you could put in a similar performance to this evening?
Oh, that's a slightly leading question, isn't it? Next week we're going to Norway. So,
well, you have to be then.
So thank you for that question. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. It's it's the fact that little Norway, a minion in the world of motor racing, that we actually have 2 tracks on iRacing is is a bit of a mystery, but we do. And Dudskogen is the closest thing to my home track. I've driven there many times, and it's a very good reproduction of the real thing. So I'm really looking forward to be able to race there in this car. That's going to be the highlight of this season.
Well, it would certainly be better than racing these cars in hell. That's for sure.
Yes, I don't think that track suits this kind of car too well. No. No.
Oh, no. Well, Ragnar, that was a super performance. The preparation definitely paid off. Well done, and good luck at your home GP next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you guys for being such good commentators and making a spectacle out of this. It's always a joy to watch afterwards. Thank you.
There we go. Double race winner Ragnar Wisloff kept himself on a level keel and had the wind in his sails today, no doubt. Move down the podium once again, and once you move from the top step, it looks a little different than race number 1, because second place was Russ Addy. Much stronger performance for you in that race.
Yes, thank goodness. I qualified at least up to where I could see the leaders. Starting the 11th was really difficult first race.
Certainly with the way the racing plays out, you get separated from the pack at the lead. Oh, so difficult to ever get that time back, isn't it?
This is one of the hardest tracks to pass anybody. You don't brake very much. You kind of lift and turn. And unless they make a tiny mistake, it's really difficult to pass anybody. So you do get those trains going.
Other than that, how would you compare this then to the modern Silverstone? Because certainly really high average speeds.
I like this one much better. This just has a great flow.
Now, apparently, some don't like when we talk championship at this point, but I would say second place in this second race was pretty important for you.
Yeah, I need to stay close to Ragnar. He's been really tough this season, and I think that's going to continue that way. So, there's a lot of fast guys. John Morgan, Donald, they'll all be there. But Ragnar seems to have just that little bit extra.
I actually heard you've been personally releasing tons and tons of methane into the atmosphere to try to extend Norwegian sailing season.
Yeah, I'll have to think on that one.
Don't be getting any ideas. Always great to chat with you, Russ. Congratulations on that second. And with any luck, when we join you guys again for the final round, you'll still be right in that.
I hope. I'll stay as close as I can. And thanks again for broadcast. As I always say, I do well when you broadcast.
Yep. I guess that's our pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Always great to hear from our drivers, Peter. We've got one more.
That we do. Donald Fitterer from Mighty Raven Racing. Donald, how did that run go?
Well, I think you saw that I started a little further back on the qualifier, and then I made that one mistake, but I was able to at least get back up on the podium.
You certainly did. I mean, in that last stage of the race, did you feel like you had the same kind of confidence and speed that you showed in race 1?
I felt that I was faster than Russ, but it was where on the track was I faster on that first or that turn just prior to the start-finish line. We were just talking about it, where I could only match his speed or be a little bit slower, which the rest of that chicane and that long straight, if I didn't do well there, then I couldn't pass him.
Of course, here, and these cars are wonderful little cars, great handling, but they don't have much power. It does take a little bit of time to get down the hangar straight. Were you thinking about what you're going to say in your wedding speech when you were charging down the hangar straight?
Absolutely not. I was just concentrating on not running into the back of Russ, which I almost did on that one back chicane, the middle one, because he made a mistake or something and lost a lot of speed, and I just barely kept from hitting him in the back.
Oh, well, it certainly went well avoided nonetheless. We're off to Rådskogen next week in Norway. Is it a track you've had much chance to get some miles in on?
I've probably put 2 or 3 hours of practice in it already. I'm feeling pretty confident I'll do well there.
I think you've chosen very well with your future wife, Donald. She seems very understanding. Yeah, putting in all these hours of practice for the racing.
Not only that, she started mountain biking when she was 64, and she has gotten so good. I can't believe it.
You're a competitive pair. You're a competitive pair. Match made in heaven. Well done, Donald, on another podium, and good luck next week.
Thank you, Peter. Cheers.
Well, there we have it. Our podium from race number 2 after round 6 of season 24 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. With the kind of racing we've seen, with how clean they keep it, and the great camaraderie between the drivers, I can imagine there are many, many, many more seasons of 60 Plus Racing Adventures to come. The great thing is more people turn 60 every week. Peter Mackay can't be too far away from joining them on the grid as well.
Not at all.
Thank you so much for joining us on RaceSpotTV for this coverage. Once again, a reminder that November 30th, you'll catch us here for the season finale. I've been David Haynes, Peter Mackay with me, Hugo Lewis on the production with the great cameras and replays. Make sure to follow us at RaceSpotTV and be subscribed on YouTube so you don't miss that season finale. Goodbye.